It is my great honor and privilege to have Sean Wright here today. Sean, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Sean is an acupuncturist, bone therapist, energy and light worker, has been helping people align their energies and transform into the best possible version of themselves for the last 7 years. So Sean, today I'm going to throw it over to you. This is a subject that I'm exploring at the moment, and it's the feminine, masculine balance or imbalance that we're seeing today in 2024.
I mean, these dynamics have played out forever, I would say. I think a lot of the issues we currently face, particularly looking at personal identity confusion and everything that we see in this current political landscape, I think, a lot of the feminization of men started around World War II.
World War II?
Yes.
How was that?
Well, you had, a lot of men going off to war. It wasn't too long after that First World War. And, there's a lot of global conflict around those times as well. So with the men being away, typically around that era and prior to, men or boys learned to be men by being around men. And when all of these men shipped off, women entered the workforce.
Yes, right.
Women were not only educating boys to be men at home, they were educating them in the education systems. So all of their exposure to being men came from women, and how to please women from the perspective of a woman, as opposed to what masculinity looks like.
Yeah.
Robert Glover's book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, I recommend everybody to read it.
Yeah.
And, that nice guy pattern, it's really, I think that is a product of the feminization of men.
Yeah.
Because what we do is we sacrifice ourselves. We sacrifice our masculinity rather than saying, no, that doesn't work for me.
And having open dialogue and getting resentment out and...
Yep, because we all want to please our mothers, and we're looking for our mother and a partner, right?
Yeah.
Because we want to nurture that soft little boy inside of us. I also think there's an element of entitlement to the fact that the world should fill our cup, as opposed to, us taking personal responsibility for our happiness, for our interactions, fulfilling our own cups.
Yeah.
And especially when you put that burden on a partner, regardless of the mental health of that partner, whether they are completely healthy and what would be considered normal. There is no normal, right?
Yeah.
I think we're all flavors on the spectrums of life.
Yeah.
But, regardless if they are what you would define as narcissistic, it's just there's always two to tango. What are you allowing in that relationship? What are you not taking responsibility for? Are you taking responsibility for your happiness? Are you taking responsibility for your touch needs, your intellectual stimulus? Do you rely so heavily on the other party to fill all of your gaps?
Yeah, good points, very good points. And on the subject of narcissism, it's interesting because there's been this incredible spike and almost overuse of the term narcissism. And it seems like anytime someone breaks up, it's like, yeah, my ex was a narcissist, is sort of like this throwaway line. But we also, are seeing a rise in this word narcissism because we do have an imbalance in the male-female, and we do have men that are emasculated trying to people please, and we do have women that are forced into their masculine imbalance and are looking at their partner to fix everything, but really just want them to hold space in a masculine way. And so we're creating these unbalanced relationships that can become toxic. They're becoming more and more frequent, and it's a bit of a plague that we're seeing going on.
Well, again, I think it comes back to the same issue. every single person has access to their masculinity. Every single woman has access to their masculinity.
Yeah.
But it takes a masculine man to lead a woman to her femininity. So when we don't show up in a masculine way, when we show up in our feminine, then who takes responsibility for the masculinity? She does.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't feel safe.
Right.
She doesn't feel held. And all of this plays out on a subconscious level.
Yeah.
So when a man is needy, he's not showing up in his masculinity.
He's not being a leader, a masculine leader, warrior, spirit.
There's no stoicism. There's an expectation of her to, again, fill your cup and share your burden, as opposed to you showing up with stoicism, showing up with strength. And it's not that you have to be stoic to the point of swallowing everything, because that in itself leads to repression and, again, a rebellion and a larger expression.
Create an imbalance in the masculine.
Absolutely. But it might just be sharing enough of the problem, but letting your partner know that you've got it covered, that you're working on it. That you're seeking help outside of that relationship so as not to put your burdens onto your partner.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
You know, I think of what a lot of people look at narcissism is, again, it's the lack of responsibility in how they're showing up. So it's like if you are showing up as a masculine man and you have a partner that is just, boom, blowing out of the water nuts.
Yeah.
As a masculine man, you would end that relationship. It's when you get caught in the pleasing, in the staying, it's, you know, fear of lack of security. It's the, you know, you can always put the excuse, oh, I didn't want to hurt their feelings. Well, it's like at the end of the day, if you're not taking charge for your own happiness and your own mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health, then you're not helping anybody. And it's just like,
and
you're
it's
allowing.
also, you know, the fear of abandonment sometimes as well is a good wound to keep that toxic relationship going.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so when you know, when that relationship resentment gets to a certain level that you know, those unspoken micro resentments aren't communicated, the male-female balance is way out of whack, and it seems like there is no way, you know, the man wants to fix everything, but there is no way to fix it anymore, and the feminine is too wounded and out of balance to be able to hold space and nurture. The man's too busy trying to fix everything to hold space, and so there's a separation and a destruction of that relationship. And then if there's children involved, the children suddenly lose their polarity and are in separate homes where there's half of the feminine, half of the masculine, and then the parents have to go through the system, and the system is horrendously bureaucratic, and it doesn't take into account individual needs. It doesn't take into account any sort of, it's not very forgiving of people's emotional states.
You're talking about the kids in those circumstances, and I just want to quickly relay, like, what you have in those toxic relationships. Like, kids live in the space between us, so they absorb, you know, our emotional states. Even if it's away, like all of your arguments, all of your conflict is away from them, they still empathetically pick up on all of the underlying emotional state. They live in the space between us, right? And so that further adds to all of the confusion later in life, you know, especially if, you know, there is imbalance in the first place, which creates all of that conflict. You know, you were talking about men trying to fix things and women being unbalanced. It's like there was a study done not that long ago where infants were placed in a room with an obstacle between themselves and their primary caregiver. And what the conclusion of that was, the male infants were moving over the top of, pushing through, knocking out away the obstacle to get to the caregiver, and the majority of the female infants were crying. So the results, the perceived results, were that men will fix the problem. They will try to overcome the problem, whereas women want you to hear their problems. So when you're coming from that dynamic of trying to fix and then wanting to be heard, as I say, I would look at that as an unconscious state with no communication. So that in itself, you cannot have a relationship based on that dynamic, not a healthy one. So again, communication is absolutely key on, pretty much all levels. However, as a man, I would say it's how you're showing up in that communication, whether you're showing up in a masculine manner or whether you're showing up with your femininity. And that's not to say that men shouldn't express their emotions, express their feelings. However, I personally feel that that expression needs to be in accordance with those values.
And in balance, like the yin-yang
absolutely
symbol. Yeah, totally. So we've covered a lot today, and it's been really, really amazing to look at all of that and to come back to these sort of 5, interpersonal, inner workings that we need to focus on on an individual basis to gain balance. I think that's all we can really do. I mean, I can't see humanity or the herd really getting better without starting on the individual process.
No, I absolutely think it has to be the individual process. It has to. The only way to balm disconnect is to find connection. And if you're not connecting with yourself, again, we'll go back to Adler. What community are you connecting with? The definition of community is just more than one person. You're the community of yourself and your household. You're the community of your household and your suburb and your state, and your country, your world, your solar system, your galaxy. You are a citizen of the universe. So what do you have faith in? What community are you creating in terms of something that's higher than yourself, that gives you drive to find that internal connection? Because I personally believe, and without putting it into a theological or a biblical sense, but I believe the more you know yourself, the more you know God, in whatever sense that means to you. And the beauty about it is you get to interpret that the way that you want to. So it can mean anything that you want, and that's probably part of the problem with a lot of these theological discussions.
But no, it's a very good point. And with technology, people are jumping in and out of communities all the time that are just not real and being influenced by them. Human beings are so easily influenced.
Absolutely. Well, we're looking for something to connect with.
That's right.
We're looking to validate ourselves through those connections. It's like, who am I? I can see myself in that, so I'm going to step into that little pool over there for a little bit of time and swim around, and then see if that really matches me, and then we move on to something else later on.
Or we go, I need to be more like that pool because it looks shiny and bright, and we change ourselves to fit in.
Does that change come from a cerebral stimulus of something that you're intellectually connecting with, or does it come from the heart and something that's been driven by connection, and love? Where does it sit? you know.
And how are you accountable? Who, you know, that's the other thing about the internet. You're not accountable.
Yeah, well, people are starting to be accountable.
Well, it's changing, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can...
The old keyboard warriors, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, challenging times, but also amazing times, because there is a rise in the consciousness movement, I guess, if you like, and the people are rebelling against bureaucracy, and people are searching for, you know, something higher, some higher truth and higher meaning, and people still want integrity and fairness ultimately. And so really, you know, the more we develop ourselves on an individual basis, the more we share that information, that learning, that knowledge, the more that resonates with people, the closer we will be to balance, and we will be to integrity. So thanks, Sean, for coming in.
No, my pleasure.
And sharing your wisdom with us today. It's been amazing to have you here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. It's been great.